This learning, and this is ExodusU. Let's go. Alright guys, so I'm going to dive right into it. I'm going to address the elephant in the room. There's this program within the Microsoft Office suite that most people hate. Oh no, we're comfortable with Word, we're comfortable with PowerPoint. It's fun, it's interactive. We can add transitions and animations of different sorts. But the program that most people fear, the program that most people are timid to touch, is Excel. And for many of us, that fear stems from the mindset of not being comfortable ever with mathematics. And that was me too. I'm not a mathematician by any means. And the way in which Excel was presented to me when I was going to college gave me the mindset that this is going to be way above my pay grade. This is something that I'm not going to be able to utilize in my everyday life. Because it was presented in such a theoretical way that I didn't see any practical application for it. So, my goal here today is to show how this can be used in a very practical way. And I really believe that when we put theory and we put these applications and programs into practical utilization, that it's going to make much more sense to you, and you'll find ways on how to better utilize it. And then from that, you can grow in how you use it and how you apply it. All right. So we're going to go through a few steps here. We're going to explain what Excel is. We're going to go through some very practical utilizations or uses for it. And we're going to go from there. And I'm going to show you that Excel doesn't have to be as scary as most people make it out to be. So let's get into it. So first things first, what is Excel? What is this program to begin with? Let's just start with the basics. All right. So Excel in itself, I know most people have heard the term spreadsheet. All right. And what you're seeing here on the screen is a blank Excel spreadsheet. Or is it? In all fairness, we have become comfortable in saying as a society that Excel is a spreadsheet and Excel is spreadsheet software. And while that is somewhat correct, it's technically wrong. If we work on the terminology, I think it's going to make it easier for us to fully understand Excel's capabilities and what it's actually designed to do. So Excel is actually a workbook. When we open up an Excel file, if you will, it is actually you opening up an Excel workbook, not just an Excel spreadsheet, an Excel workbook. Okay. So your workbook can contain multiple spreadsheets. All right. In this particular case, we have our new workbook, and we can see here in this grid is our worksheet. But one thing that I do want to show is that we have down here sheet 1. And by default, Excel will give you one spreadsheet. But you're not limited to that. You can add several spreadsheets. And you can see right here to the right of the sheet 1 tab, which identifies this particular sheet in the workbook, we can add multiple spreadsheets. Okay? All right, so let's look at the overall navigation, if you will, of Excel. If you're familiar with Microsoft Office, if you're familiar with Microsoft Word or PowerPoint, the organization, some of the navigational menus are going to look similar as far as layout. But again, this is not a Word document. This is not a PowerPoint presentation. This is a completely different program. This is Excel workbook that we're working in. So we have our File tab, which is same location as in Microsoft Word or PowerPoint. We also have our Home tab. And so this Home tab is going to display many of the key functions that are going to be typically used throughout this file. Okay, this is going to be pretty much your main functions, your kind of one-stop shop, if you will, as to where we're going to find most of the functions that we're going to be utilizing. Okay. In addition to that, we have an insert tab, and so you want to familiarize yourself with what each tab contains, but think about it in a very logical manner. If we want to insert something, if we want to insert a graphic, or we want to insert some type of text or something like that, we would go to the Insert tab. Very similar in organization to the other Microsoft Office products. Page layout. This is very similar as well to Microsoft Word, where in this particular case, we're formatting the page so that way it can be printed for distribution. And in this page layout tab, we would be looking at margins and things of that nature as to how we're going to format this spreadsheet on a piece of paper, or pieces of paper for that matter. To the right of the page layout, we have our Formulas tab, and we're going to speak a lot more about formulas. I know that is one of the key areas that most people get timid with, and that was an area that I've had challenges with in the past. But I'm going to show you how Excel over the years has evolved to make the creation and use of formulas so much easier for you. We have our Data tab, and this will be where we can somewhat analyze and utilize the data that's put into the spreadsheet itself. Our Review tab, the View tab, and you're going to see that in this particular screenshot here that I have a Developer tab and an Analytics Solver tab, and these may or may not be available to you. So let me backtrack for a second. Excel is coming from a very long way, and as with any Microsoft Office program, over time, a period of time, these programs update. They change versions, not virgins. Okay. Over a period of time, these change versions, and so with that, you're gonna find that we're going from Excel 97 to 2000 to 2003, and now you're hearing more about Microsoft Office, or Excel specifically in this case, 365. So with that, there will be features that may be available or unavailable, minute features that may show up in one version that don't show in another. Here's the point. I'm less concerned with what version you have and more concerned that you understand and are aware of the key concepts. Excel is pretty much like driving a car. Each car may have its different features, and each car may have a different year or version of itself. At the end of the day, though, if you can drive a car, you should be able to drive a car. Now, yes, where the windshield wiper control is probably going to be a little bit different. Where your shift knob is, that's probably going to be a little bit different. And whether the car has heated seats or not, that's going to be different. But at the end of the day, it's still a car. All right, does that make sense? So Excel is pretty much in the same way. You have different versions, and there will be some features here and there that are a little bit different. And as we go on and create more videos for ExodusU, we'll point those out. But in this video, we're focusing primarily on the basics. All right, so regardless of what version you have, the basics are going to remain the same. All right, very good. So moving on, we've got some other areas to identify. We have our worksheet here, or our spreadsheet here, and we have columns that are identified by letters, and then we have rows that are identified by numbers. Okay, so our first column is A, and it goes all the way to Z, and then you'll see that beyond Z it repeats. So we have A, B, A, C, and so on in that fashion. And then we have our rows coming down numerically. Now, to identify what cell we are in, or what cell we have selected, we name that cell based on the column letter and the row number. All right, so in this particular case, the first cell that is typically always active in a new Excel workbook or spreadsheet is cell A1. So first the column letter, then the row number, A1. This name box here is another way to easily identify what cell is active, what cell we are actively in, or has been actively selected. Okay, so imagine having a large spreadsheet, and perhaps that cell that is selected is out of view. If I want to know what cell I'm actively in, I can go to the name box or simply look at the name box, and it's going to show me what cell is active. Okay. To the right of that is the dreaded, and it's not going to be dreaded, I'm going to make this very simple, is the formula bar. This is where formulas are typically written by hand, and there again are other ways of invoking and executing formulas, but this is referred to as the formula bar. And this is going to be very useful as formulas are created. When we select various cells, the actual formula will read out in this bar here. Okay. All right, so moving on towards the left, all right, all the way to the left of the first column heading, so column A, to the left of that is a button here, which most people are unaware of. It's actually a button, and this is called the Select All button. Okay, so a shortcut to that, just like in Microsoft Word or in PowerPoint, is on your keyboard. If you hold down the Control key, and this will hit the A is an apple button, that is the shortcut for Select All in almost any program that utilizes Microsoft Windows. Okay, but there's a button here for that in Excel that allows the user to select all of the contents that are within the particular spreadsheet. Okay, so you can simply click here. Doesn't even look like a button, but simply click there and the entire spreadsheet will be selected. All right, and again, re-emphasizing what I said earlier, our column headings are identified by letter, row headings identified by number. Right, so we can see here in this particular example, and we're going to be doing this as well, where this particular file is being turned into a spreadsheet that's going to track a budget for Jim. Okay, Jim is looking to create a budget of some sort. And so the active cell, the cell that is selected, we can see here with this green border, is now cell A2. All right, so let's play with this for a moment. Let's open up Excel. I've got a blank Excel spreadsheet here. So we're gonna play with a budget here. Everyone has some type of bill that they've got to pay, And Excel is a great tool to help you identify what your expenses are each month, where you can make changes in your budget, and the income that's coming in as well. All right, so let's play with that. So we're going to title this Jim's monthly budget. And so what you can see is I just started typing, but again, off the bat, cell A1, looking at our name box, cell A1 was automatically selected. We can also see that by me typing into this cell here, the same text or information is also shown in my formula box. And this is going to be handy. We're going to see whatever is typically in my cell should be displayed to some extent in my formula box. Okay, or formula bar, I'm sorry. All right, so this is Jim's monthly budget. Let's do this for the month of January. All right, great. So I'm gonna play with this a little bit more. One thing that I noticed off the bat is that the text that is within cell A1 is going beyond the boundary of cell A1. All right, so you can see that it's going into cell B1, and it's actually going into C1 to some extent. Now, what can I do? What can I do to fix that? Glad that you asked. All right, so these columns can be adjusted, whether manually or automatically, to hold the text or contents of the cell. Okay, one way to do it is simply by doing it manually and clicking in between the column and dragging it. And you can see that Excel is actively showing me the size or pixel size of the column width. All right, so you can see that I have manually resized my column. Right, it's quite a bit bigger now. However, it's still not to a point that I'm comfortable, because Jim's monthly budget, that heading, is still going beyond column A. An easy way to fix this is simply double click between the column heading. So I double click between column A and column B. Watch this. Excel automatically, the word here is auto fits the column to the longest cell size, and auto fits the column now to fit all the contents in that column. All right. So now we can see that all of column A can fit the contents that are in that column. So we can see that A1 now fits completely, and I don't have any text going beyond the column boundary. All right. Something else that we can do is, just like if we were in Word or PowerPoint, we have the ability to center. We can see that right here. We have the ability to align left, align right, or to center. And if I hit center, you can see now that the text in that cell is centered within the cell. But it's another feature within Excel that allows us to center the contents along a range of cells. So let's stop right there. What is a range? What's a range? A range is simply when we select multiple cells, whether they're adjacent or not, but when we select multiple cells and we need to identify what that selection is. Okay, so in Excel, for example, what we're seeing here is I have selected cell A1, cell B1, C1, D1, E1, F1, all the way through to J1. Now, rather than saying A1, B1, C1, rather than saying that repeatedly and getting tongue-tied, what we would do is simply say that I have selected the range A1 through J1, right? And so if I wanted to write that, I'm going to just write this off to the right here for a moment. If I wanted to write that, I would do A1 colon J1. So if I were to write this or relay this information to someone else, this is how I would represent it. A1 through J1. And the colon that is between A1 and J1 in my text means A1 and everything through and everything in between till J1. All right? Okay, very good. So I'm going to go back and select my range A1 through J1. And I'm going to do merge and center. Merge and center. So on our home tab, here's this other feature called merge and center. When I click this, what it essentially does is make all of A1, that first cell, go all the way to the boundary of what was J1. All right, and so now it is merged as one cell and centered along the boundaries that I have given it. And so everything else underneath now can fit within whatever cell boundaries I have, but now I have this nice heading that is centered around all my text. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing here for cell A2. I just would like it to look a little bit more presentable and easier to read. And so I'm going to select cell A2 through J2 and simply click merge and center again here. All right. And so we can see that both cell A1 and cell A2 have been individually merged and centered. So we're going to continue formatting this spreadsheet. And because we're setting this budget, Jim would also like to know how we're going to track his income in this spreadsheet, as well as how we're going to calculate the savings he has after we've calculated not only his expenses tying into his income, but then what's left, what's the savings, what can we put aside. So we're going to type in here income in cell B3, and then right below that in cell B4 I'm typing savings. All right, and simply to move between the cells, for myself, I find it that for me easier to use the arrow keys on my keyboard. You can hit the enter key, you could use the mouse, whichever method works best for you. All right, I'm going to skip a line here and I'm going to type expenses. All right, and let's just think of some expenses that we have from month to month. If you have a car, you might have a car payment. You need gas for that car. Car insurance. In addition to that, you gotta have someplace to live. So let's do rent/mortgage. You'll need electricity for that house. The water bill. What else? You might need internet. Whether you want to watch Hulu, Netflix, whatever it is, need some form of internet. Most people these days have a cell phone, so there's a bill for that. Cell phone bill. And what else could we potentially think of? We haven't eaten yet. Food. All right. And again, the list can go on and on and on and on and on. We're just making this very basic for now, and we're going to see how we can add to this as time goes on. But for right now, let's go with that. So we're going to say that Jim's income, monthly income, is, let's say, $2,000. All right. We're not going to worry about savings right now because I'm going to show you how we can have that automatically calculate when we're all done. The car payment, say he has a decent car, we're going to call the car payment $200. That could be fairly low, but let's just do $200 for now. Gas for the car. Maybe he spends $150 a month on gas. Depending on how gas prices are, it could be much higher than that. But let's go with $150 for now. Car insurance. Let's say Jim's a younger guy and this is one of his first vehicles. Let's say that the car insurance is $180. The rent. Let's say he's living in an apartment of some sort, and we're going to leave it at $1,000 for now, depending on what part of the country he decides to live in. All right, the electricity, let's go with $100. Water bill shouldn't be too much, leave it at $20. Internet, you may not have the fastest internet, doesn't have to be fiber, but let's just go with some type of broadband-based internet. Leave it at $100 for now. That might include something along with that. Maybe it's a home phone as well. Who knows? The cell phone, I'm gonna go with $100 as well. And food, this could range whether the person decides to eat in or eat out. But from per month, I'm gonna leave it at $300 for now. Okay. Now that we have these expenses, let's look at how we can identify what the running total is of these expenses and how we can allow Excel to calculate that for us and then from there further compute our savings. So what we have here is pretty much the spreadsheet doctored up to an extent. And in this spreadsheet example here, we have selected a range of cells. Remember, we spoke about range before. So if we're looking at this particular sheet here, not 100% identical to the one that we've just created, but very similar. Let's look at the range of cells that's selected. Remember, when we select a range of cells, we start with the first cell that's selected with the ending cell. Based on the highlighted column heading and then as well the row numbers, we should be able to tell what range is selected. So we can see that the range C7 through the range C15, even though this is somewhat blocked, we can still tell that C7 through C15 is the range of cells that's selected. Okay, so C7 through C15 selected, and Excel has a unique way now of dynamically providing you with tools as you select various parts of the spreadsheet. And so this tool here, you'll typically see this little box here when a range of cells is selected, and Excel has a hint or an idea or a tool that can potentially help you. It's a tool called the Quick Analysis Tool. Quick Analysis Tool. If you click on that, typically a little short dialog box will appear. And in this case, it's giving us some quick tools that we can utilize versus having to go through the menus on top or going through other dialog boxes. So one thing that we can use here, we can see something called sum. You're going to find that this is just one way of utilizing sum. And sum pretty much is providing you with the sum total or adding the range of cells that you have selected and giving you that total. This is a formula. This is the start of using formulas here. And so without having to go through the manual process of writing or typing out a formula, this predefined formula is already here in Excel, and we refer to this sum formula in this case as AutoSum. All right? So you'll see that AutoSum is available here. AutoSum is also available in a few other places. Here is a screenshot of the workbook, and here in the menu, you'll see on the Home tab is AutoSum. All the way to the top right is AutoSum. Now, for those of you who also like to utilize keyboard shortcuts, you could also select the range of cells, and through the range of cells, utilize the Alt button on your keyboard and the equals button, and that will invoke AutoSum as well. You can see that through this heading here, this clip heading here, that's pretty much showing you the keyboard shortcut as well to utilizing AutoSum. Another area where AutoSum can be utilized is also under the Formulas tab. So we mentioned that earlier. We have our File tab, Home tab, Insert tab. And so if you want to insert a formula of almost any sort, you can also go to the Formulas tab. And on the Formulas tab are going to be typically utilized formulas in a categorized manner. And what you'll see there first is, or second, I should say, is the AutoSum function. All right. The next way that we can also use sum, and this is not AutoSum. So AutoSum is automatically sum. You select a range of cells, and when you click that AutoSum button, it will automatically do the addition for you. Whereas there is the other method of simply selecting the sum function and going through a wizard or dialog box, I should say, that will take you through the steps of kind of creating the formula. So you'll see on the Formulas tab again, there's the Insert Function button, which is also the same Insert Function button that is to the left of the formula bar. All right, so you can see Insert Function to the left of the formula bar at all times, or you could go to the Formulas tab and click Insert Function. When that is done, this dialog box here called Insert Function will appear. And this tool is very helpful, very helpful. What you'll see here by default are going to be the most recently used functions or typically used functions in Excel. However, if you were to click on this dialog box here and click on that drop down, there'll be an option where you can view all of the functions built into Excel, and there are hundreds if not thousands of them that are in there. There's functions that go from accounting, finance, to analytical, to geographical. The list goes on and on. And so there are formulas of all types and all sorts built into Excel. And then by selecting them, Excel will pretty much help walk you through the process of properly building that formula without you physically having to type out that formula. And I'll show you what that looks like. So meanwhile, we could select the sum function here as well, hit OK, and that would take us through the process of creating the formula. And so once, whether AutoSum is selected or we did the Insert Function button, like we mentioned before, the formula is actually going to be put right here into the formula bar, which is essentially going to give us the value in our cell. So in this particular example, in the screenshot, all our values are here. We selected the range. In this case, it was C7 through C15. And then it auto-summed right here in C16. And we see the total. In this case, it was 2,250. But a key factor here to look at is while we see the total number or total amount in C16, in the formula bar, while this cell is selected, we don't see that number. And the reason for that is the formula bar is designed to show what is called the underlying value. So, for example, let's go back to our spreadsheet here. I'm going to auto sum this range, in this case C7 through C15, and if I auto sum this, okay, my total comes up to 2150. Great. And again, I could have done this a few ways, just out of my habit and the way that I was trained on how to use auto sum. I typically select the range and click the auto sum button to the top right. That's out of habit. So my total comes up to 2150. And that is just fine. But again, I see here in my cell 2150, but in my formula bar, I don't see 2150. However, should I click on another value, for example, the electric bill value, I've got 100 here and 100 here. And so the reason for that is this. When I simply type in a value, that's what it is. Okay, I typed in 100, 100 is going to be displayed in my formula bar. I type in 300, 300 should display in my formula bar. But that differs when it comes to a formula. When it comes to a formula, I didn't type 2150. 2150 is the result of my formula. And so Excel will show me what my result is here, which is called the displayed value. But my formula bar is going to tell me what the underlying value is, and the underlying value is the formula. Okay? And so the underlying value, or the formula bar here, is showing me how we came up with this number. So if I click in the formula bar, it's actually also visually showing me the range that was used to calculate the result. All right, and so what's displayed in C16, our displayed value, is the result of the sum of C7 through C15. All right, so growing from that, okay, our expenses have, for the month of January, came up to $2,150. Jim's income, however, for the month of January is $2,000. Now, if that was a more exorbitant number and we had a greater list of expenses, we may not be able to calculate that right in our head. Again, I'm not a mathematician, as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, and maybe some of you aren't either. Granted, yes, I can tell the difference here that he's going to be short $150, but maybe we're calculating hundreds of thousands of dollars, okay? In this particular case, what I'm going to do is create a very basic formula that is going to tell me what was saved or not. So in this case, if I'm typing in a formula, I'm going to select the cell where I want the result of the formula to be displayed. I'm going to hit the equals key because I'm going to tell Excel I want this cell to be equal to the following. So I want this cell to be equal to income, and I can type this in or I can click on it. Income, which is due $2,000, so equal to C3 minus, and I'll use the dash button on my keyboard, and that's the second key in my case to the left of the backspace key, and I'm going to click my total expenses here, which is C16. If I hit enter, it's telling me, well, hey dude, you really didn't save anything, you're in debt of $150. Or you're going to have to borrow $150 from somebody somewhere. All right. Again, now the beauty of it, this spreadsheet is it's dynamic. And with it being dynamic, that means I can change and adjust values. And the formulas are automatically going to update. So for example, let's say I made a mistake in my food expenses. And perhaps, you know what, I didn't really spend $300 that month. Maybe I only spent $100. I decided to spend 2 or 3 weeks at home with the parents. Jim says, hey, I'm going to be 2 or 3 weeks home with the parents, and so I'm not really going to buy food. I'm just going to eat what they got. So maybe he only spent $100 in food expenses. So if we type in 100 to replace the 300 that was there and hit enter, you can now see that everything that was a formula that gave a result automatically changed. And so this was originally 2150, now it's 1950. And then my savings automatically updated from a negative number to a positive number, and now shows $50 instead. All right, so before I go too far, I want to add one more point. We have these values here, but they're not as pretty. They're not showing the dollar sign. Something else that we can do is format these values to look like the currency amounts or accounting amounts on this spreadsheet. And so I'm simply going to select this range of cells here. And on our home tab, there is a number area. We're going to simply click on the accounting number format, or click on the dollar sign symbol in this case. And by clicking on the dollar sign symbol, now everything has automatically formatted to the accounting number format. We have this beautiful file here, a spreadsheet here, that it's great, but we failed to do one thing. We haven't saved it yet. And so if you've used any other Microsoft Office program or application before, saving is pretty much going to be done in the same method here in Excel. So you can utilize the Control S as in Sam key on your keyboard as the shortcut to save, as you would do in any other Windows-based program, or you can simply go to the File tab and click Save or Save As, and that will give you the opportunity as well to save the file in location of your choosing and in the name that you desire as well, in which to better identify the spreadsheet in the future. So with that, I hope you learned something new from this video. I hope you found it engaging, and I hope that I've helped take away some of the fear or apprehension that you may have had in regards to using Excel. We're always looking to create more and more content to help you, and so hope you had a great time with me here today, and I hope to see you in the next one. See you then.